Hey everybody, Kamar Yellows here. Welcome to the Finance Rebel Show. Y'all know every Wednesday we do our Wealthy Wednesday segment and I answer your money questions. And I usually come up with a topic. And today's topic is a quick question. What would you do if you worked for a company for 30 years, had a pension, was expected, and then a company goes bankrupt? What would you do in that situation? Well, that situation is happening right now. And as we get into the show, I want to talk about it, and I want to talk about what you should do if you find yourself in that situation. All right. So again, I'm Kamar Yellows. Welcome to the Finance Rebel Show. If you don't know me, today we're going to talk about a couple of things. Like I said, the first one is going to be if you work for a company that's going bankrupt and you have a pension there, what should you do? That's one. But the other thing I want to talk about, I ran across an interesting video clip, as y'all know I like to do from time to time. And I wanted to see what everybody's thoughts were about this. So as everybody's coming into the room, make sure you leave your name. Let me know what your name is. Let me know where you're hailing from. And we will jump into it. So let's get to this.
It's filled with way too many bright people for us to still have the problems that we have in the world. It's going to be our shame, you know what I mean, that we don't sit together and create people who invest with thought and consideration and care to solve the world's problems. If we can do all these things that we do digitally, technologically, economically, we can feed people, we can educate people through poverty. We can solve the problems of poverty. Poverty isn't even something that should exist in this world at this point. But we have the ability now to see the resistance, acknowledge it for what it is, and go beyond it, and go past it. We have the answers. We have so many of the answers. We have the technology. We have the wealth. We just have to be willing to share it. And in order for us to do that, we have to do the work in and on ourselves so that we can be conduits of change and improvement for other people. Because that's really what it's about. We have the ability. I think it just takes courageous folks, who are not afraid to see the new world that's on the horizon.
So what do y'all think about that? See the new world on the horizon. And if you don't know, that was Queen Lauryn, right? Queen Lauryn Hill, hip hop, R&B star, beautiful singer, wonderful rapper. I would call her a deep thinker. I like a lot of her commentary. However, she is an entertainer. So if you know me, you know I don't put too much stock in any entertainers. But put in the comments what you think about what she just said there. Poverty should not exist anymore. We have the answers. We just have to have the will to make things happen. I largely would agree with her. Very much so. I don't know why more people don't take up arms and do more things about it. But here's the question. Do people really want to be helped? Or do they just say they want to be helped? Because, it's rough, right? We see poverty, we see homelessness, we see a lot of crazy social things that are not fair, just to be honest. And then, and sometimes you wonder, what if we all just pitched in a little bit? It would go a long way to help people. But a lot of times, a lot of people don't really want to be helped. So what do you do in that situation? But I want to play this again just to get everybody's take on this. So give me 1 second.
The world is filled with way too many bright people for us to still have the problems that we have in the world. It's going to be our shame, you know what I mean, that we don't sit together and create people who invest with thought and consideration and care to solve the world's problems. If we can do all these things that we do digitally.
Thought, consideration, and care. I do wonder if that's all gone these days. I really do wonder, because sometimes you'll see people getting beat up, accosted, raped, and they just record, videotape. They don't call police. They don't scream at the person. They just kind of watch. But I don't know. What do y'all think?
Technologically, economically, we can feed people, we can educate people through poverty. We can solve the problems of poverty. Poverty isn't even something that should exist in this world at this point. But we have the ability now to see the resistance, acknowledge it for what it is, and go beyond it, and go past it. We have the answers. We have so many of the answers. We have the technology. We have the wealth.
I don't know if we have the answers. We definitely have the technology. I don't know if people really have the will to do something like this. Again, it's very idealistic, and I don't mean that as a slight. I do believe that we need idealistic people that can see beyond what we have right now and to change things. So
We just have to be willing to share it. And in order for us to do that, we have to do the work in and on ourselves so that we can be conduits of change and improvement for other people. Because that's really what it's about. We have the...
No, I wholeheartedly agree with that. We definitely have to do the work on ourselves so we can be better stewards of our people.
ability. I think it just takes courageous folks, who are not
That's the question, though. Do we have enough courageous people?
afraid
Do we have any courageous people?
to see the new world that's on the horizon.
So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to get everybody's take on that and see if you agreed, disagreed. I agree with some of it. I agree with a lot of it. I don't agree with all of it, but I agree with a lot of it. I do believe that if we have more courage, everybody working together, we can fix a lot of things. We can fix a lot of problems in our communities if we just act like neighbors, love one another, look out for one another. I believe that could be very, very helpful. But I don't know. It's a rough task to tackle. A rough task to tackle. Say that 3 times. That's definitely a tongue twister. But, again, I agree with a lot of what she says. A lot of what she says. And again, it's the world, right? Nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect. Now, go ahead, comment in the chat. Tell me what you think about that. Now, I want to move on to the next topic. I wanted to talk about what do you do if your company that you've worked for many, many years is going bankrupt and you have a pension there? What should you do? And there's actually a lot of people that have that situation. And there is a major trucking company that is going through that. Now, someone sent me this clip and they said I should talk about it on the show because somebody might have a pension and their company might be going out of business or filing bankruptcy and might not know what to do. So that's why I decided to talk about this tonight. So let's talk about this next clip, y'all. Quick warning, there's a lot of foul language in this. So if you got any children around, you might want to do the earmuffs or save this for another time.
That's fine. That's fine. You can do that. You don't know where I'm motherfucking feel. I'm on my ass over this motherfucking Exactly. I mean, 30-something motherfucking deal. Yeah, I agree.
So this man has worked at this company, Yellow Freight Company. That company is in the process of filing bankruptcy as we speak now. They've already shut down operations.
30-something fucking years. You tell me I ain't got no motherfucking pension. Yeah. Nobody tell me to calm my ass down. Fuck everybody tell me to calm down.
So he's mad, rightfully so. Said he worked there for over 30 years. Pension's going to be gone. Healthcare is going to be gone. And I'm guessing if he's worked there 30 years, he might be thinking about retiring very soon. So that could throw a whole monkey wrench in his plan for retirement.
This is my motherfucking money y'all playing with.
You're right, Dwayne.
Fuck that shit.
So this is what I'm saying.
You gonna tell me how to motherfucking feel. Fuck that shit, man.
So this is what I'm
Fuck
saying.
this shit.
All right, so you got the flavor. Man's upset, rightfully so. Retirement is potentially in jeopardy because he doesn't know where his pension is going to be. Now, a lot of things run through my mind when we look at this clip, right? But to make this productive, I wanted to talk to you about what should you be thinking about if you are in this situation. All is not lost. All is not lost. But it can be very, very frustrating. I mean, other industries have gone through this. This man works in the trucking industry. I don't know if he's a driver. I don't know if he's a warehouse worker, but he's a member of the Teamsters Union also. So the Teamsters will have gotten some relief from government over the last year or two because their pension has been teetering in jeopardy for so long because of COVID. A lot of people have been impacted by COVID. Now, if you think about pension and pension plans, a lot of people really don't understand them, right? Pension plans were something from back in the day. Largely, a lot of them are no longer in existence or they're dying off really, really quickly. Have you ever watched any of the congressional hearings for the United States Post Office and all of the issues with the post office? Because they're always struggling. One of the issues with the post office is their pension plan. Now, for the United States Postal Service, Congress, because the Postal Service is a quasi-governmental agency, right? While it runs itself, it's still directed by the government because mail is very important. But Congress requires the United States Postal Service to be 100% funded. And say, Kamari, what do you mean by 100% funded? Well, here's where the funny math comes in. Some pensions, a lot of pensions, right, have flexibility because, again, it's all kinds of numbers. You get actuaries and other finance big brains that figure out how much money is needed to pay these people over their lifetime after they retire. Because usually what happens is you have a pension, you work at a company for a long time. This young man said 30 years, right? So let's say he worked there 30 years. When he gets his 35th year, and let's say he's, I don't know, 60 years old, hypothetically, just throwing it out there. At 60, he stops working, and now his new income stream is directly from the pension. And the pension may pay 80% of his normal take-home pay or of his income and salary, something like that. It's normally not 100%. It's a little bit lower. But what happens is companies fund these big pools of pensions, right? So they put money aside, cash. Sometimes they're putting aside investments. They'll invest some of the money as well. And so as people begin to retire, the money is there and it's already built up based on the projections that they will need to fund these people's pensions for the rest of their lives. So just think about pension as future paycheck. So the pension is like their future paycheck after they retire. So after they retire, they draw down from this pool of money that's been set aside for workers and make sure that they're good for the rest of their lives. Well, in many cases, especially since Reagan and some of the other Republicans, they've kind of tore down pension plans, right? They push back the responsibility of retirement away from the company onto individuals, the employees, and it's getting a little bit harder. So again, a lot of times these companies are not required to put, let's say, 100% of what the projected funded need for these pensionees going into the future. And so they don't always put all this money in. And so then if the company goes out of business, then there's no money for the pensioners. Right. And this is just hypothetical right now. So then what do these people that worked all these years, sweat, blood, and tears for these companies, what do they get? Well, many of them feel like they get gypped. Now, if you go back in the 80s, the pilots union got hit really hard. Their pension got hit really hard. They were going to strike. Reagan said, go ahead and strike, and we're going to cut your pension. Now, they didn't cut all of the pension because in the United States, pensions are guaranteed to a certain degree. But you might not get that whole full amount that you were expecting and planning on all those years. I know when the pilots struck in the 80s, their pensions got cut drastically by like 60 or 50%. If you live a lifestyle where, let's say, again, hypothetically, and I looked this up, in the Teamsters Union, you have salaries ranging from anywhere from $40,000 to $120,000, right? So if we just go in the middle, pick $50,000, and you're used to living a $50,000 lifestyle, and your pension is going to be there to cover your $50,000 lifestyle. And they're saying it's gone now. What are they going to do? They spent most of their working years at this company. All of that's behind them. What are they going to do now? They're thinking they're not going to have anything left over. And so normally, let's say they make $50,000, right? So they want to retire on $50,000. Again, hypothetical number. They're going to retire on $50,000, and the pension's not there to fund it. Now, they have a thing called the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, and that's a form of insurance that all the pension funds pay into. And so all of them pay into that. So you're guaranteed to get something, even though it might not be that $50,000 that you're expecting to get after working all these years, working hard all these years. But you get something. So now you have to figure out, what am I going to do now? Pension's gone. My health care benefits. Health care is like the biggie. Health care, people don't realize, especially some of us younger folks. Well, I'm not as much young anymore, but folks like, in their 30s and 40s, they don't really realize just how important healthcare is. But once you get 40 plus, 50 plus, you're like, man, this healthcare matters. It's important. Because if you get into an injury, you go to the hospital, you get an ambulance ride, it all matters. It all counts. And it adds up to a lot of big, big, big money. So, you got all this stress and anxiety on your mind. And again, like I said, maybe make $50,000 a year. And then work is gone. Work is gone. And so work is gone. You got to figure out how to get this $50,000 back. So like I said, the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation will backstop some of these pensions. But like that brother was complaining about, you don't know how much. There are some formulas out there, but it's still in limbo right now. There's a lot going on, especially with this company. So if you're not getting your pension, then you got to say, well, what's next? Am I going to get Social Security? Do I have enough money saved? Do I have enough money invested? How long before I plan on living and working? All of those things come into play. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have in retirement? A lot of those things are going to come into play. So when you get into this, right, you want to think about it. There's a rule in retirement called the 25% rule. So normally you need to have about 25% of your income, your current income, and assets to retire on. So again, if you make $50,000 a year, and in order to replace your $50,000 a year, you need about 1.2 million. And so if you don't have that 1.2 million to live a comfortable lifestyle like you're living now, you have to ask yourself, well, how do I fill that gap? Do I have other assets that will kick off cash flow to me? Maybe some residential real estate or real estate that pays any kind of rental or income. Maybe some stocks and bonds that pay dividend and interest. You have to start thinking, well, maybe I can get another job or I can start a business. You have to start thinking about things like that. Then you got to ask yourself, well, how long do I want to keep working? And so in this scenario, I was just saying that the guy might be 60. Well, you can't technically start taking Social Security until about 62. And that's early. And they give you a bit of a discount. You don't get full Social Security until you get to 67. So maybe they say, all right, well, I'll work a little bit longer. I'll get Social Security. I'll wait till I get full Social Security for a couple of reasons. I'll tell you in a minute. And then I have to think, well, what kind of work do I have qualifications to do? to have the training and skills to do this work, because now your job is gone. So you have to think about all those things, especially when you're at a company that's going bankrupt and you're trying to figure out, what am I going to do for my retirement? And matter of fact, not just retirement, your livelihood. What are you going to do for that? So that's something you got to think about. And everybody should be thinking about that, whether you have a pension or not have a pension. Right? At some point, everybody should have money set aside for when they retire. Now, somebody like me, I don't ever really plan to retire, but guess what? My body and my mind may say, well, you know what, Kamar, you need to go somewhere and sit down. You don't need to work anymore. Sometimes your body and your mind gives out before you have really maximized all your money or put everything away. Or your body just says, you know what, this is enough. I don't care how much money you have or how much money you don't have. We're done. Time to tap out. Throw the white flag. What are you going to do then? Right. So that's why it's important to really start to think about not just retirement, but putting money away for things that you might need in retirement, or just having money if anything were to happen. Rainy day fund. Your job, you could lose your job, right? Now, please don't confuse this. I'm not talking about mixing and commingling your retirement funds with your emergency funds. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you're going to need money to make sure you're good. You're going to need money to buy food, to pay for the light bill, to pay for the gas bill, to pay for gas to put in your card, or to buy your bus pass, right? Whatever lifestyle you might live, it's going to take money at some point. And you got to want to know, not got to want to know, you have to know where it's coming from in order to really plan properly for a good retirement. All right. So I also wanted to go over a little bit how this company is faring. Now, the name of this company is called the Yellow Corporation, and they've been in the news quite a bit. So here's a title from Wall Street Journal. It says, why trucking giant Yellow shut down could cost taxpayers money. So like I mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, that Yellow got a bunch of money through pandemic. Let's see here. I was looking at it. They got over $700 million. Yeah, they got over $700 million in COVID funding through the pandemic. And they got so much money that the Treasury took an ownership stake in Yellow. That's how crazy they got it for them during the pandemic. So here it is. The federal government lent Yellow $700 million during the height of COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, providing a bill that had to help the company operating and attempt to expand its business. The Treasury Department took a roughly 30% equity stake. That means they owned a part of the business. They own 30% of Yellow. At least 3 government investigations have since questioned the Trump administration handling the loan. Well, I don't even want to talk about that dude. He done got indicted again, so who knows what in the world he done did with this. But we all know that trucking is a major, major thing in the United States. A lot of freight, a lot of fruit, a lot of parts. I mean, if anybody remembers the pandemic where nobody got anything, you need truckers. And part of the reason you couldn't get things to the stores is because many of the truckers couldn't get stuff off the docks. So again, it gets crazy. So again, the government lent them $700 million. The Treasury Department took a 30% stake in them. That's pretty sad, meaning that company is not really safe. So that man that was having a fit and tantrum, rightfully so, was saying, hey, I don't know what you guys are doing. I don't know what's going to happen. Now, one thing that did come out, right, So it says now Yellow has shut down its operations and is expected to file bankruptcy. Now they haven't told us if it's a Chapter 11, Chapter 7, Chapter 13, I believe. 7 and 11 are only for corporations, so 13 is only for personal, I believe, off the top of my head. But you got to ask yourself what's going on right now, right? But just going back through this again, and I'm reading from the Wall Street Journal. So it says now Yellow has shut down its operations and is expected to file for bankruptcy following a string of mergers that left it bulging with debt. So the company has too much debt and a standoff with the Teamsters Union. All right, Treasury's equity stake could be wiped out. So the government's probably going to stand to lose $700 million on this deal. Whether the federal government recovers the money it lent would likely depend on how much Yellow raises by selling real estate and other assets in bankruptcy. But some lawmakers and analysts have said taxpayers could lose money. So that means they probably won't get any of their money back. But y'all let me know, what do you think this young man should do who is facing retirement with potentially no pension? All right.
Why you talking like that? That's fucking that's fine. You can do that. You don't know where I'm motherfucking feel. I want my ass off in this motherfucking Exactly. I've been here 30-something motherfucking years. Yeah, I agree with you. 30-something fucking years. You tell me I ain't got no motherfucking pension. Yeah, I agree. And nobody tell me.
I mean, how would you feel if you worked somewhere 30 years and the company you worked at, pension just disappeared? Now, I just walked through some of the technicals, right? There will be some form of pension there, but not as much as he's expecting. But guess what? This guy is the only one that's exposed to something like this. There's a lot of people who work for people or work for companies that have pensions that can file bankruptcy, right? And then when the level of bankruptcy is reached, many times the employee doesn't have much to do. So if you work somewhere that has a pension, you don't have a lot of control. So what you have to do is really start to take your future into your hands. You have to start to save. You have to start to invest. Because you don't know, one, if the pension will survive. Hopefully it will, or at least survive intact, right? And then the other thing is, a lot of us, we factor in Social Security. I don't know if Social Security will ever truly pay out, right? Or if it does pay out, or it does get to a stable place, how old will I have to be in order to take full retirement? Full retirement age right now on Social Security is 67. Will I have to wait till 70? Potentially, they've been talking about pushing out to 75. Right? It used to be 65. So that's, since we have an issue with Social Security funding, and pensions are almost a thing of the past, what would someone like me do when it's time for me to retire? Well, again, like I said, I don't plan on retiring, but I will be ready. We will be ready. So think about that. Now, one of the things that the Teamsters Union is doing for some of these employees is that they're helping to get them jobs at other places, right? That's one of the benefits of working for the union. If somebody else, another freight company in the Teamsters has openings, they can move some of the employees that were at Yellow to another company. So hopefully that will help people at least lessen some of the benefit, lessen some of the pain, lessen some of the stress, or lower some of the stress. So, but again, you have to think about this. What are you going to do if your company has a pension and it's going to, or maybe, file bankruptcy? It's happened a lot in the past. This isn't the first time it's happened. It is not the last time it's going to happen. All right? So again, the question is, how are you preparing yourself to be ready? Rain or storm, sun or shine, company thriving, company bankrupt. You still have to eat. you still have to do good and survive and thrive in this thing we call life. So again, think about that. Again, I tell people all the time, assess what you have. Do you have 401k? Do you have a pension? Do you have money set aside outside of your 401k, your pension, your social security plan? Know what they are. All right. Pull your social security statement. See what your benefit will be. And ask yourself, can I live off that benefit? And if you can't live off that benefit, start asking yourself, well, how much do I need in retirement? Like I said, if you had $50,000, right, multiply that by 25, that's 1.25 million. That's about what you would need in retirement. Again, it's an estimation. It's not perfect. If you make 100,000, again, multiply that by 25. That brings you to 2.5 million. What you would need to live off in retirement. And then, the other rule that they'll say is like, well, you can pull out 4%. So if you pull out 4% of your money, you typically can live for about 30 years guaranteed. Typically. But I would say, make sure you are running these numbers. If you don't know how to run these numbers, get with a financial planner. Also, a lot of people, a lot of times, do not engage with their 401k providers at their jobs. So for this conversation, I'm just going to assume everybody's working at a job that has a 401k. So if you have a job with a 401k, make sure you sit down and you talk with your 401k providers. Ask them for help with putting together your asset allocation with your 401k. Now, if you don't know how to do any of those things and you can't get help at your job, you can always ask me. That's why I love to answer your questions every Wednesday. Feel free to jump in my DMs, send me an email, right? Kamari@phillytaxteam.com. You can do all those things if you need help. All right. But again, what would you do if this was you and you didn't have a pension? So that's all I have for tonight, folks. Remember, every day we got to take strides to become financially stable, financially free. One of those things is savings. In order to save, you got to live beneath your means. So every time you get $1 doesn't mean you got to spend that whole dollar. Spend 50 cents of that dollar, put the other 50 cents away. Spend 80 cents and put 20 cents away, right? If you got $10, spend $8, put $2 away. If you got $100, you can spend $80, put $20 away. Put it aside, right? Make sure you are savings. And from that savings, make sure you are taking some of those savings and investing them in assets that can grow, outpace inflation, and help to give you a cushion and a lifestyle that you deserve as you get a little bit older. Now, thank you for everybody that's tuned in tonight. Again, if you're watching this in the replay, tell me what you think about these things and what you would do. And I will see you all next Wednesday, if not sooner, here at the Financial Roll Show. Everybody have a great night. Bye-bye.